During this High Holy Day period from Rosh Hashanah to today, we've explored different facets of what it means to be a sacred people. Perhaps you may have been wondering why I chose to focus on this aspect of our lives this year. As a community, we should always strive to be the very best, not just as Jews or Floridians or even as Americans. Our goal should be to be the best humans possible. While our sacred texts give us guidance and answers on how to achieve this ideal, it truly is up to us to recognize and understand not just the idea of holiness, but all of the many dimensions of what it means to be holy or sacred. On Rosh Hashanah evening, we discovered that holiness is about being set apart, about intentionally designating moments and places and relationships as sacred, just as an artisan sets apart an ordinary stone by placing it in a hand-carved box. Then on Rosh Hashanah day, we shifted our focus to the divine presence, the Shekhinah, that dwells within each and every person, reminding us that every human being is inherently sacred. Our challenge was and continues to be to find holiness not just in the set apart, but also in the everyday and the mundane. Last night, we confronted the sacredness in brokenness and repair. We stood together, acknowledging our failures and broken promises, and learned that our past mistakes are not to be discarded, but carried with us as we begin the sacred work of teshuvah, of returning and repairing. This brings us to Yom Kippur Day, the culmination of our journey. We are here to talk about the sacred as an enduring covenant, a brit, the powerful and unbreakable bond that holds us together and that holds us to God. This covenant transcends time, circumstance, and even physical presence. The following beautiful midrash perfectly embodies the strength and mutual responsibility of an enduring covenant. There's an old beloved story told about two brothers who lived together on a large fertile field that they had inherited from their father. They loved each other very much, but their lives were very different. One brother was married and had many children to feed. The other brother was unmarried and lived alone. One harvest season, as they sat in their separate homes, they began to worry about each other. The married brother thought to himself, "My brother is alone. He has no wife and no children to take care of him when he is old. I have my wife and many children to support me. Surely it is my responsibility to ensure he has enough." That night he quietly went out and carried several sheaves of his wheat to his brother's barn, adding to his pile without a word. The unmarried brother in his own home was having the same thoughts. "My brother has a family to feed, a wife and many children. He has much more responsibility than I. It is only right that I share my abundance with him." That night he also went out and carried several sheaves of his wheat to his brother's barn, adding to his pile in the dark. This went on for several nights. Each morning both brothers were baffled. Their piles of wheat never seemed to shrink. They couldn't understand it. Finally, one night, they both went out at the exact same moment. They met in the middle of the field, each carrying a heavy sack of wheat on his back on his way to the other brother's barn. They stopped, and in the quiet of the night, they looked at each other and understood what was happening. They put their sacks down and embraced in the middle of the field, their hearts overflowing with love. This midrash teaches that holiness is not just about our individual relationship with God. It is about our unbreakable, often unspoken covenant with each other. The story goes on to say that it was on this very spot, the place where the two brothers' love and mutual responsibility were revealed, that the holy temple in Jerusalem was eventually built. The holiness of the temple, the holiest place on earth, was built not on stone, but on the foundation of an enduring, unbreakable covenant between two people. Our covenant is not a fair weather promise. It is a bond that holds us together even when we don't realize we are being held. It is the sacred, unspoken, and deeply compassionate agreement that no one will be left alone, and that we will always be there to help carry each other's burdens. When I'm working with my conversion class, I ask them what they think about when they hear the word covenant. In every semester I have taught conversion classes, without exception, at least one student says Brit or Brit. When Jewish people hear the word Brit, more often than not, they think of the Brit Milah, the very physical sign of our covenant with God. However, Brit Milah is only one example of covenant, or Brit. After all, the clearest example of the covenant we have with God is our sacred Torah, our guide to living our Jewish lives. This covenant is not just an historical agreement. It is a living reality. We often speak about the Torah as being a living document. The Torah gives us examples of how to live our lives based in Torah. Even when we do not understand or even agree with certain teachings of the Torah, we still turn to our sacred texts, not only for answers, but sometimes to challenge ourselves with even more questions. These questions and answers are a solid foundation for how to look to our past in our attempts at comprehending the covenant. Describing the Torah as a living document means that our interpretations of these stories and ideas may change over time. These questions also serve as a guide for how we should live and connect with the future, not only of our Jewish community, but for all of humanity. When we come to the Ne'ilah service at the very end of Yom Kippur, we find a set of climactic prayers which draw our attention to the final moments of Yom Kippur, the sealing of the book of life, drawing us close to the gates as they are closing, and a reaffirmation of our covenant with God and with each other. This Brit is enduring, not ending with Yom Kippur, but continuing with us every day moving forward. We recognize that as we pray for our acceptance into the Brit with God, we are looking forward to how we can live our lives even better in the year to come. While the Torah is a physical example of our Brit, our enduring covenant with God, the words of Shema Yisrael on the lips of every Jewish person serve as our very personal declaration. What are we declaring? We are expressing our sacred, unified relationship with God, with others, and with our own Jewish identities. The most important words a Jewish person can exclaim, Shema Yisrael, tells everyone who is listening that Adonai is the one God. This is a very powerful pronouncement, perhaps even the most powerful. This final High Holy Day sermon brings it all together, turning our focus to the enduring, unbreakable bond that defines us as the Jewish people, the sacred as enduring covenant. We began our exploration by expressing the set-apart aspects of holiness, not better, but unique. Today, as we explore the endurance of our covenant with God and with each other, we must think about our abilities to truly live with imminent holiness, the Shekhinah, God's very personal connection with each and every one of us. And then we look backwards and forwards in engaging into teshuvah or repair. We are challenged to see the sacred in ourselves and in others. We seek and give forgiveness. This should not be an act that occurs only in the months of Elul and Tishrei. Teshuvah, Tikkun Olam, these are ideas or concepts that we must be devoted to each and every day. Remember, we are all a part of the Brit. Therefore, repairing damaged relationships while seeing the sacred in others reconnects us to each other and, of course, to God. Okay. These are some great ideas and concepts. How do we put them into action? What must we do? How do we act out as role models to each other and to those outside of our community? It starts with our children, the future generation. We need to educate and or re-educate the next generation, not just in our own religious school studies, but also in our support of Jewish institutions outside the sacred walls of Temple Beth Shalom. This continued assistance will ensure that our covenant continues. Our beloved congregational community needs all kinds of support. I'm sure the first thought that comes to mind is financial support. This is so funny watching all the people in the back go like this with their hands. While our congregation does need this kind of support, there are other ways to assist. Participating in our events, helping to set up and break down sweat equity is extremely important and valuable. Just ask Barry Hartman. There are other ways to also ensure of this enduring covenant. Sending our children to Jewish summer camps, attending the URJ biennial when it returns in 2026, which it is going to happen. Traveling to and exploring Israel, just to name a few. The first step, of course, in fulfilling our part of the sacred agreement requires pursuing justice, as Debbie just read, treating others with loving kindness, as Debbie just read, and walking humbly with God. Again, this is not just a commitment to be made during the High Holy Days, but every day. It is our very personal, daily practice of our sacred commitment. The following story, the three rabbis and the stranger, beautifully brings together all the themes of these High Holy Day sermons, from the sacred being set apart to the enduring covenant. There's a story told about a great city in which three renowned rabbis lived. The first was a great scholar who taught Torah all day. The second was a mystical healer who blessed and prayed with all who were troubled. The third was a simple, humble man who ran a small bakery. One Yom Kippur, a stranger, famished and exhausted from travel, stumbled into their city just before sunset. He was weak and needed food, but the city was shut for the holy day. He found the first rabbi, the scholar, and begged for a meal. The scholar, moved by his plight, recited a beautiful prayer, blessed him, and told him that his prayers would surely bring him relief. The stranger went to the second rabbi, the healer. The mystic felt the stranger's pain and gave him a blessing of comfort and spiritual strength. He told him that his soul was surely filled with divine light. I'm sure that was very helpful. Finally, the stranger, now desperate, found the third rabbi, the simple baker. Without a word, on Yom Kippur, the baker, a rabbi, took a loaf of warm bread from his working oven on Yom Kippur, broke it in two, and gave half to the stranger. When the simple baker returned to his synagogue, the other two rabbis were waiting. "Did you see the stranger?" they asked. "We gave him the blessing of the Holy One. May he be comforted by his presence." The baker nodded. "Yes," he replied. "And I gave him the only thing that could truly comfort him, the blessing of an unbroken covenant. I gave him a piece of bread. Because on this day, we acknowledge that God's presence is in the giving, and the covenant is not a word, but an action. The story reminds us that our enduring covenant is not just in our prayers, our blessings, or our holy texts. It is in the sacred, everyday acts of compassion that we show to each other. It is in the shared bread, the helping hand, and the simple, undeniable recognition that we are all part of the same human family and that our bond is unbreakable. This story reminds us that our enduring covenant is not just in our prayers, our blessings, or our holy texts. It is in these sacred, everyday acts of compassion that we show to each other. Did I just read the same thing twice? Yes, intentionally, to make sure that you were listening. The simple baker taught us that the final, most essential form of holiness is the one that is lived. So, as we begin to end our sacred journey this year, let us take with us not just the memory of these prayers and sermons, but a commitment to enact the holiness we have explored. Let us seek out the sacred as set apart, Kodesh, in our lives, to find the divine presence, Shekhinah, in every person we meet, to be brave enough to engage in the hard work of repair, Teshuvah, and to live our lives as a testament to our enduring covenant, Brit, with God and with one another. Let us be the ones to give the bread. Sorry, Rachel. I'm talking about food. To offer the helping hand and to build a community so whole that no one is left alone. May we all be written in the book of life, and may each of us have a wonderful 5786. Good Yontif.